Two Silverados, same year, same 5.3 V8, same mileage, same asking price. One of them is going to leave somebody stranded on the side of the road. The other one's going to run for years. And nothing on the outside tells you which is which. The badges match. The bodies match. The odometers are within a few thousand miles of each other. From 10 feet away in the parking lot, they're the same truck. But underneath, one of them has a transmission with room to spare behind that engine, and the other's running a transmission that's been living close to its limit its whole life. Over the next few minutes, I'll show you how to tell those two trucks apart in about 10 seconds, standing right there in the driveway before you ever turn the key. And there's one thing you feel for on the test drive that most buyers never think to check. Miss it, and you find out the hard way about a month after the money changes hands. Let's start with the question everybody asks first. Why would two trucks that look exactly the same have two different transmissions underneath? You'd think that was some kind of factory slip-up. It was on purpose. General Motors used both of them across these years, and they weren't shy about putting them in the same showroom on the same day. Through this whole run of trucks, roughly 2007 up through 2013, there was an older 4-speed automatic and a newer 6-speed automatic being sold at the very same time. The 4-speed carried most of the early trucks. It went behind the smaller engines, and it went behind a good number of the early 5.3s too. Then the 6-speed started showing up on the V8 trucks. By around 2009, it was landing in a lot of the extended cabs and crew cabs with the 5.3 under the hood. And by the end of the run, that older 4-speed had mostly slid down to the base trucks and the lighter setups. Here's what that means for you, and it's where folks trip up. A 2008 and a 2012 with the exact same 5.3 engine can come with two completely different transmissions. Hand a buyer two trucks from the very same model year, and they can still be different underneath, depending on nothing more than how somebody ordered the thing off the lot 15 years ago. So when a listing says 2011 Silverado 5.3, that tells you where to go looking. It doesn't tell you what's bolted in underneath. The year barely narrows it down. Hold on to that because it's the single biggest reason people get this decision wrong and pay for it later. Let me tell you what that 6-speed brings to a 5.3 truck, because this is where a lot of the value sits. It's simply a heavier duty unit. It was built to handle more twisting force, more load, more of the hard work a truck gets asked to do over its life. It's also got more gears, so it can keep the revs down and stay out of a strain on the highway instead of fighting every hill. All of that shows up the moment you use the truck for truck things. Put a crew cab on the highway with a loaded trailer behind it, and you're asking the drivetrain for serious effort. That load lands on a unit that still has some margin left in reserve. It isn't working right at the ragged edge of what it can do. So who gets the most out of the 6-speed? The crew cabs, the 4-wheel drive trucks, anything that tows on a regular basis, anything that spends its life loaded down with weight in the bed. The harder you plan to work the truck, the more that reserve pays you back over the long haul. Think of it like two guys carrying the same heavy box up a flight of stairs. One of them is built for it and barely breaks a sweat. The other one can do it, but he's straining the whole way up, and he's the one whose back gives out first. Same box, same stairs, very different wear. If you're buying a 5.3 that's going to earn its keep pulling a camper or a work trailer every weekend, that right there is your case for hunting down the 6-speed. Make a note of it because we're going to come back to how you find one. Now here's the part almost nobody explains, right? And I want this one to land because it flips what most people assume. On paper, the 6-speed is the stronger transmission, but its weak spot is a different kind of problem than the old 4-speeds, and that difference matters more than the strength does. When a 4-speed gets tired, it usually warns you first. The shifts get sloppy. It starts to slip a little here and there. You get some time to see it coming and plan around it. Save up, make the call on your own schedule instead of on the shoulder of the interstate. And there's a real bonus with that older unit. It's one of the most commonly rebuilt transmissions in the whole country. Almost any shop in America has done 100 of them and could do yours in their sleep. That keeps the repair bill down to something a normal person can stomach. The 6-speed's trouble spot is the torque converter. There's a known common failure where the lockup clutch inside that converter comes apart and sends metal debris through the rest of the transmission. And here's why that's worse than it sounds. When it lets go, you're not just swapping one clean part. You're dealing with contamination spread all the way through the unit. Little bits of that clutch material get pushed into the pump, into the valve body, into places that then need cleaning or replacing right along with it. General Motors has put out service bulletins on this exact problem covering a very large number of these trucks. So this isn't a story somebody typed on a forum at midnight. It's on the record, straight from the manufacturer, and it's why I won't tell anybody to buy one of these sight unseen. Let me put some real numbers on that, because this is where it stops being a technical talk and turns into a money talk. If that old 4-speed ever needs a rebuild, you're usually looking at somewhere around $2,000 to $3,000, and it can swing a bit by shop and by region. If the 6-speed lets go on you, the bill runs higher, often in the range of $4,000 to $5,500. Some independent shops won't even take the 6-speed job because it needs special tools and information the manufacturer doesn't exactly hand out for free. So the wrong pick here on 2 trucks that looked identical in the parking lot can be a swing of a few $1,000s out of your pocket down the road. That's not a rounding error. That's a mortgage payment or 2. And that right there is the whole reason this channel exists. So if you're getting something out of this, take 1 second and hit subscribe. I'm not here to sell you a truck. I'm here to keep you from making a $5,000 mistake on a quiet Saturday afternoon, and there's a new one of these breakdowns every week. All right, back to it. So what do you do about all this? Standing on the lot with the keys in your hand. Here's the test drive tell I promised you at the top. The early warning people feel is a shudder. You're cruising along at a light throttle, somewhere around 35 to 50 miles per hour, and it feels like you just rolled over rumble strips on smooth, flat pavement. A little shimmy, a little buzz up through the seat and the floor where there's no reason for one on a clean road. Some folks describe it like driving over a cattle guard that isn't there. If you feel that, the seat of your pants just earned its keep for the whole trip. Slow down, note the speed it showed up at, and remember it when you sit down to talk price. Now let me keep you honest, because I'm not going to hand you a magic trick that doesn't exist. That shudder can come from other things too. A bad tire, a worn driveline part, something out back, even the wrong fluid sitting in the transmission. You're not going to sort out which one it is from the driver's seat, and you shouldn't try, so the rule is simple, and it's a good one for any used truck. A truck that shudders like that doesn't get bought that same day. It gets put up on a rack by somebody who can pull the codes and take a proper look. And if a seller won't let you do that on a truck that's already showing you a symptom, that tells you plenty all by itself. Some days, the most useful answer you get is the look on the seller's face when you ask. I don't want you walking away thinking the 4-speed is the loser of the pair, because it isn't. And there are plenty of times it's the smarter truck to buy. Let me make that case, because it's a fair one. Start with the easy situation. In a lighter truck that's going to be a daily driver and a weekend errand runner, not a workhorse, that older 4-speed is a fine match for the job. That's not settling for the cheap option. That's the right transmission for that kind of use, and it's cheaper and simpler to live with for the whole life of the truck. But here's the case that matters most to you, because you're out comparing 2 5.3 trucks head to head. Go back to those 2 2011 trucks we started with. Say the 4-speed truck comes with a folder, oil change receipts, transmission service records, even a documented rebuild done a couple years back by a shop whose phone number's printed right there on the paper, a shop you can call this afternoon and talk to. Never towed, clean, solid frame, starts right and drives right, both cold in the morning and warm after a highway run. And say the 6-speed truck sitting next to it has no records at all. an owner who thinks it was maybe serviced at some point but can't say for sure, and it's been a couple of years pulling a trailer for the fellow who owned it before him. I'm buying the 4-speed truck. I'm not going to lose a minute of sleep over it. A documented history is worth more than a heavier-duty unit with a blank past and a mystery underneath. That's not me going soft on the whole point of this video. That's the point of this video working the way it should. The 6-speed wins when everything else is honestly equal between two trucks. The moment everything else stops being equal, everything else wins. A cared-for 4-speed will beat a neglected 6-speed every single time, and it isn't close. Let me be fair to that old 4-speed for a moment because it's carried a rough name for 20 years that it only half earned. A lot of that came from how people used it. They dropped it behind heavy trucks and asked it to tow loads it was never sized to pull day after day, and then blamed the transmission when it wore out. That doesn't mean it has no weak points of its own, because it does. It means you judge the truck sitting in front of you on its own records and its own drive, not on the reputation somebody built for it in a comment section 10 years ago. Both of these transmissions have real, known problems. Neither one deserves to be written off on a rumor you half remember hearing. Alright, this is the moment I've been building the whole video toward, and it's the reason you clicked in the first place. How do you know, standing in the driveway, which transmission is sitting in that one truck? You don't have to guess. You don't have to crawl underneath it on the cold ground. There's a paper trail, and it's sitting a couple of feet from where you're already standing. Open the driver's door and look at the sticker in the door jamb, or pop the glove box and look at the label in there. On that sticker is a long list of little 3-character codes. General Motors calls them RPO codes, and you can think of them as the truck's birth certificate, the build sheet printed right there for anybody who knows how to read one single line of it. You're hunting for the transmission code, and you don't need to be a mechanic to read it. See M30, and you've got the 4-speed. See MYC, and you've got the 6-speed. That's the whole trick. M30 is the old 4-speed. MYC is the 6-speed. Say them out loud in the truck if it helps. M30 and MYC. So you've got them in your head before you go. Snap a photo of that sticker with your phone while you're at it so you can look it up later or text it to somebody who knows. 10 seconds standing in the driveway before you ever turn the key or take it around the block. The title told you a year. That little sticker tells you the truth. A couple of quick housekeeping notes while we're looking at that sticker so nobody gets tripped up in the store. You might spot a couple of other transmission codes floating around, mostly on the bigger 3/4 ton and 1-ton trucks. Those are a different animal, built for serious hauling and for engine swaps, and they're not what we're talking about in a half-ton. If you're shopping a regular 1500, the two codes you care about are M30 and MYC. Keep it that simple and you won't talk yourself into a corner. But I owe you the honest catch because I'm not going to send you out the door half-informed and overconfident. On a truck this old, that sticker tells you what left the factory. What's bolted in there today can be a different story. Plenty of these trucks have had a transmission rebuilt or swapped somewhere across 15 years of ownership. So if the seller mentions any transmission work at all, don't just nod and smile and move on. Ask for the paperwork and read it line by line. Who did the work? When they did it? What parts they replaced? Whether they dealt with that torque converter problem we talked about. A quality rebuild with paperwork behind it is worth money and can make a truck a great buy. One with no paper is just another unknown wearing a few shiny new parts. While I've got you thinking about what's underneath, let me pull one more thread because it ties the engine and the transmission together into a single story. A lot of these 5.3-liter engines came with a fuel-saving feature that shuts off cylinders when you're just cruising. When that system's worn out or was never maintained right, it doesn't only beat up the engine, it puts extra strain on the transmission living right behind it. So the way a truck was driven and cared for shows up on both ends of the drivetrain. A truck that got babied tends to have been babied everywhere. A truck that got run hard and ignored tends to show it everywhere you look. You're never just buying a transmission. You're buying the last owner's habits, good or bad, and those habits are already baked in by the time the keys reach your hand. Now let me put the whole thing in order for you, because this is what I want you to carry out the door and onto the lot. If you forget everything else in this video, remember the order these checks go in, because the order is where people go wrong. Condition of the truck as a whole comes first. Right behind it is the frame and the rust, and on a truck this age, that one question decides more good and bad purchases than any drivetrain question ever will. After that comes the records, the paper trail, the whole story of how it was cared for, then how it drives, cold first thing in the morning and warm after a good highway run, then whatever the codes or a look up on the rack turn up. Only after all of that do you get to the transmission type, your M30 or your MYC. And the price is the last thing you settle, once you already know exactly what you're looking at. See where the transmission landed on that list? Near the bottom, not the top. It's the tiebreaker between two good trucks. It is not the first question you ask about any truck. Get that order backwards and you'll buy a rusty truck with a wonderful transmission, which is a wonderful transmission bolted to a problem. I want to hear from you on this one, so drop a comment and tell me what you're running. Give me the year, tell me whether you've got the 4-speed or the 6 under there, and tell me your mileage. If you've got one of these that's crossed 200,000 or 300,000 miles on the original transmission, say so nice and loud, because the folks out there shopping right now need to hear that it can be done and done well. Your one comment might be the exact thing that saves the next person from a bad buy. And if you know somebody about to go look at one of these, send them this before they go, not after. So let me bring it all the way home. Plain and simple, the way I'd tell my own brother. 2 honest 5.3 trucks, everything else equal between them. You take the 6-speed. It's got the margin, and that matters most if you're going to work the truck hard. But a documented 4-speed against a mystery 6-speed, you take the truck with the paper trail every single time. No contest. And if you're just buying a lighter truck to get around town, the 4-speed is a perfectly good match, and there's no reason on earth to shy away from it. Any shudder at highway speed, any hard slam into gear, any flare where the engine revs up before the truck goes, or any burnt smell on the fluid on either transmission, you get it inspected before you buy. Never after. And a seller who won't let you look underneath, you thank them kindly for their time, and you drive your own truck back home. Check the sticker for M30 or MYC. Ask for the records and read them properly. Drive it warm, not just cold in the driveway. Get down and look hard at that frame. None of that guarantees you a perfect truck, because nothing on earth does. But it gives you an honest shot at picking the right one out of 2 trucks that look exactly the same to everybody else walking the lot. And now you know something most of those folks strolling right past these trucks will never figure out. The year's only a hint. The glove box is the truth. Now go find the good one